Hey Steph, it's Thursday. Today is a very special episode and so I'm in the kitchen. So I've said in previous videos that you're definitely eating more salt than you should be, and I can easily be saying the same about sugar, especially if you're drinking pop. Today I'm going to attempt to show you just how manufacturers attempt to hide things like salt and sugar in their sodas and in their processed foods. Let's start with sugar. Everybody's favorite sweetener can hide very easily inside a glass of water. Let's do a test and see just how much sugar we can fit inside. This is about a can of pop. It's about 350 milliliters. I'm gonna go a teaspoon at a time. This is half a cup of sugar, about a cup and a half of water. The best thing to note about this, about science, is that you don't really have to be precise. What we're going for here is approximate values. So you can see here that most of the sugar, and it's all dissolved. So I'm about halfway through this. You can fit a lot of sugar. I've heard 22 ounces. I'm not sure exactly how much that works out to in milliliters, but you can fit a ton of sugar inside of water. You can see the color starting to change. That's to be expected. It's dissolved. There might be a bit not dissolved. So you can see here that I've used more than half of this cup of sugar. You would never eat this much sugar in one sitting, ever. And so what they try to do is they oversaturate this with sugar until sugar basically is sitting at the bottom, and then they take that sugar out. So you can see here this is basically now still dissolved. There's a bit floating around, but all this sugar to a good approximation is going to fit inside this cup of water. And I should note this is just at room temperature. If you heat up the sugar, it'll go even more. We're starting to take this to ridiculous proportions. I don't know if you can see on the camera there how little sugar is actually floating around. But I would say a good 90% of that is dissolved already, and I have barely even stirred it. They basically say that it takes 6 hours of stirring. If you can stir for 6 hours and it still isn't dissolved, then it doesn't dissolve, but this is almost all dissolved already. There are a few grains floating around, but really, I could probably keep going with this. I got lots more. I think we're starting to hit the limit of how much you can add. This is over half a cup of sugar in one can worth of water. Starting to hit the limit. We'll come back to this one. So that is a lot of calories. And before you go saying, oh, I drink Diet Coke and that doesn't have as many calories, there's lots of evidence that Diet Pop is just as bad for you as regular, just not because of the sugar. Artificial sweeteners can act as laxatives, they often do. And so in solid form, they're actually mixed with thickeners or things to make them have the consistency of sugar. They've used sand. Usually they'll use some kind of indigestible plant matter. Maltodextrin is one of them that you hear a lot. Basically, your system can't digest it, and so it doesn't count as calories, but it can't be good for you. It's almost like eating wood. They don't go that far, but... So, we're done with sugar, now let's go to salt. I've also got some salt with me here. Got a new glass of water. Now, normally we think of salt in that we sprinkle some on it to season our food. There's so much more to salt when it comes to processed food. The processing of food removes a lot of the flavor from it, and food companies are absolutely aware of this. They're going to use a combination of salt and other flavor enhancers like MSG, and they're going to go ahead and cover up the blandness of their food. So let's take a look at just how easily salt can hide inside a glass of water. I don't think it's going to be nearly as much as the sugar, but we'll see what happens. So I've got, again, half a cup of salt, and I've got the same amount, 350 approximately milliliters glass of water. Obviously, you're not going to get this much salt in processed food. This is an exaggeration, but I'm just going to show you how easily it can hide inside of food by just dissolving it in water and then putting it in. Again, for this one, I think I've heard it's 36 grams per 100 milliliters. So I've got 350 milliliters here. We'll see what happens. You'll notice again, it's off color, but I don't feel any particles, so call that dissolved. And again, this, when you heat it up, it'll dissolve more, and so companies are going to be heating this during the cooking process. Very off color, but that usually improves with time. There's a bit still not dissolved, but for the most part, it's dissolved again. So you notice I'm putting ridiculous amounts, like half a cup of salt. If you can put half a cup of salt in and get it mostly dissolved, you can put a ton of salt into water and into a water-soluble stuff like food. So you see here, there's some salt residue on the spoon, but most of it is dissolved in here now. There's none there. There's only a tiny bit gathered at the bottom. If we check back on our sugar, the sugar is completely dissolved. That's amazing. I was not expecting that. So we'll come and check back on that at the end. So both of these substances, as you can see, dissolve really well in water. And so they cook into food really, really well. If a company can stuff lots of calories into a small amount of food, they'll be able to sell you more and they'll be able to get you to eat more, which gets rid of it quicker. It's important to be aware of what kind of foods can contain hidden salt, and so it's really, really important that you look at labels when you're buying processed foods, and most of the food you see in grocery stores is processed these days. Companies are really, really tricky about how they do this too. One example that I can think of off the top of my head is peanut butter. If you look at natural peanut butter versus craft peanut butter, the normal stuff you'd find, just look and you can see how much salt and how much sugar there is in peanut butter, whereas natural peanut butter is just peanuts. It's fantastic and it's delicious to me. I can't have the craft stuff anymore. Another important thing here, I eat a lot of frozen chicken. Like I'll buy the stuff that comes in boxes frozen. It's interesting how they make that. Often, most of the chicken you eat, unless it comes directly from the meat producer, chicken is ground, processed, and then repressed into the chicken breast shape. And so restaurants use that chicken, grocery stores box that chicken up and sell it, and those are packed with salt as well. This week on Future Side Chat, I'll be talking all about nutrition, so be sure to tune in on Saturday at 12:30 p.m. So basically we all need to be a little more aware of what we're eating, how much of it we're eating, and we can lead long, healthy lives. I love you, and I'll see you Monday.